Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to share with you 4 ways that I use my stencils. They are by no means the only way you can use stencils, but they are amongst my favourite ways. Stencils are reasonably priced and are made by lots of different companies. The ones that I'm going to be using today are made by Kaisercraft, Stencil Girl, and the other one is Cadence. There's a right side and a wrong side to a stencil, so before you start using your stencils, make sure you check it out. If you look at it closely, you can see that there's sort of like on one side there's a double line, and on the other side it's nice and smooth. The nice smooth side is the back, and that sits nicely against your cardstock or whatever you're using. And I usually put a little texture mark on mine so that I know. Other ways of telling are if it's got a brand name on it, that will generally be on the front. And if you're using a stencil that has text, well, of course the text has to be running the right way along. The other thing to remember if you want to have a nice clear image using your stencils is to clean your stencils well after you've used them, because if you leave anything on there, that will tend to push your stencil up off of your cardstock and you will get a messy image. I'm going to use 6-inch square pieces of white cardstock to show these techniques to you. I will use these for something later on. So I've taken a 12-inch piece of cardstock and cut it into 4 even pieces. For the first technique, I'm going to use my Matisse Impasto medium, and it is a gel. It dries clear, and I'm going to apply that to the stenciled area using my palette knife. While my stencil's still in place, I'm going to slip a piece of scrap paper underneath to catch my overflow, and then I'm going to cover the paste with Dress My Craft frosted sugar powder. I'm going to rub that into place with my fingers, and then I'm going to go over the top of it with my brayer to make sure that I get that texture firmly embedded into the paste. Once I've done that, I can tip that off and tip it back into the jar. Then I peel the stencil off and set that aside to dry. As you can see, the texture and dimension on this cardstock is just beautiful. The beads won't come off of this because they're embedded in that paste. For the second technique, I'm going to use this Cadence stencil. It hasn't got a name, it's got a number. It's MU-03. So I'm going to use this Deco Foil Transfer Gel Duo, and I'm going to push that gel through my stencil onto my white cardstock. Now you can see that this stencil doesn't cover the whole of the cardstock, so I can lift it up and move it over and go again. You can only do this if you keep the back of your stencil clean as well. So when you're putting your mediums through your stencil, try and make sure that your medium is thick enough that it doesn't squish underneath. If it does, you'll need to clean the back of your stencil before you move it over to apply the gel to the other side of the card. This gel goes on white, and you have to set it aside to dry. When it's dry, it's clear, and then once it's clear, you can then apply your foil on top. Now that it's dry, I'm going to take my Fab Foil. I've got gold, but it comes in lots and lots of different colours. All of the things that I'm using I will link to down in the description box, so if that's of any help to you, that's where you'll find them. I'm going to cut a piece of this foil, so it's about 6 inches long, and it's probably about, I don't know, 3.5 to 4 inches wide. And I'm going to lay that on top of my gel, then with the shiny side up, the pattern side up, and then I'm going to run over the top of that with my brayer. Just to be on the safe side, I also just run over it with my fingers just to make sure I get in all the grooves and creases. You will see that I use the same piece to do the bottom section of the card. You can use this foil until there's no foil left on there. You need to just keep putting it down and rubbing it on, and then picking it up and moving it onto a section that hasn't been used previously. The next process I'm going to show you is to use paste through your stencil. Now there's lots of different pastes. You can use a modelling paste and colour it with your paints or watercolours. There is Bo Bunny have a gold glitter paste that you can use. Faber-Castell have Texture Luxe. This comes in all sorts of different colours. This one that I have is called Pearl. And there's also Shimmers paints in textures. This one's called Gold Mine. And then there's the Inca Gold, and these come in lots of different colours as well. So you can use any paste, you can colour it with any medium. I find this is probably the technique that I use the most. I generally use my modelling paste and then colour it to suit whatever my project is that I'm working on. To show you this technique today, I'm going to use my Colour Blast colour pastes and the Kaisercraft Textures stencil. I'm going to use the Sing in the Blues, Sunshine and Lipstick pastes. Starting at the one end of the cardstock, I'm going to swipe the blue through the stencil, then the yellow and then the pink, so that I get 3 colours on the one sheet. This paste is glossy. It's got a shimmer in it, so when it's dry it's got a nice shimmer to it as well. I've had this paste for quite a few years and it's a bit thick now, so I'm just applying it straight onto the stencil. If you're using something that's a bit thinner, you could actually blend the colours onto each other, so you get that transition between colours. I take my stencils to the sink and wash them as soon as I've finished applying all of these mediums. Otherwise I probably won't have the stencils for very long. For my fourth way technique, I'm going to use Stencil Girl Stencil, and I'm not sure what it is called. It doesn't seem to have a name on it either. But I'm going to use that with my Distress inks. I have used some mint tape to attach the paper to the stencil, so it doesn't move around, but in point of actual fact it does end up moving around. And anyway, I'm going to use what colours I'm using. The one I'm using at the moment is Blueprint Sketch. The next colour I'll use will be Salty Ocean, and then the last one will be Speckled Egg. So I'm applying a good coat of that through the stencil using my blending brush. I'm going to get quite a good cover of colour here, so I'm not going lightly. I'm getting quite a heavy cover. I let that dry a little bit, and then I used my Kazaz Reason Season Lifetime Script stamp and my Jet Black Stays On ink and stamped through the stencil, so I never took the stencil off between the application of the ink and the stamping, so the stencil stayed in place the whole time. I have put an arrow on my stamp, the back of my stamp, so I don't stamp my text upside down. So make sure that you give that stamp a good firm press to get down into the grooves. So there we have our 4 techniques. We have the paste with the frosted sugar powder. We have the coloured pastes, and in this case the Colour Blast colour pastes that are nice and shimmery. Then we've got the inked background that I've just shown you. So we ink and then stamp through the stencil as well. And of course the foiling technique. I hope you've enjoyed watching my video, and I hope you will pop in and have a look next time I upload a video. Thank you for being here.